¿Qué onda, vatos? Thanks again for tuning into yet another video. We are removing our rear tire on the Lowrider S or your Softail Milwaukee 8. Alright, so we got, yeah, I think we're ready for some new tires. I got some, I'm not sure what the name brand of the other tire is. It's a long range, or long distance, or high mile tire. So the reason why I'm switching over to that one is because I don't do a lot of performance riding or a lot of aggressive riding, because it depends on how sticky you want the tire, right? I would say for my type of riding, I would rather have the high mile tire than the sticky tire or whatever, you know. There's many options out there, but I want a high mile tire, and that's what I went with. And I'll show you the brand right now. In case you're wondering, how do you read your tire? So you can see it right here. 180 width, that's the width of the tire. 70 tall, I believe. 16 is the size of the wheel, the size of the rim. So we already went ahead and we removed a couple components. We already removed the belt guard. You guys can see it's only 3 bolts. You guys can see the install when I go ahead and I put everything back together, but you have 1, 2, and then 3 right over here. So in case you want to get a close up, I already have the camera on the tripod, so unfortunately I can't get that close. So we have one right here. You guys can see we have another one right underneath the what is it called, the swing arm, underneath the swing arm right over here. And then you have another one right up here. So you remove those 3 bolts, and then we go over to the other side, and then we go ahead and remove the brake caliper. So it's only 2 bolts. You guys see, one here, one there. I have the brake caliper over there. Just keep in mind, you know, just look at your brake caliper when you reinstall it. Make sure these pads don't slip out. Just a precaution. And if you're inspecting your brake pads, it looks like I might need replacing soon. So if you wanted to, right now would be a good time to do it. I believe that's probably about, yeah, I'd say it's time to replace the I'd say it's time to replace the rear brake pads if they're that thin. I mean, it's already out, but like I said, it's an easy install. As far as the brake pads, I'm just going to focus on the tire, and maybe down the road I'll probably consider changing the rear brake pad, because that I mean, if this came into the shop and I was the service writer on this, I would probably recommend brake pads. So the way you kind of measure brake pads, if you have 2 dimes, you can actually put them together, and if they're thinner than those 2 dimes stacked, then it's pretty much time for you to replace your brake pads. All right, and you also have a whir bar on this. You guys can see the whir bar. It's getting pretty close. This is your whir bars. The closer you get to this or this right here, you guys can see how it kind of ends. You know, you're really pushing it. All right, so we still have a little bit of life. I'd say they're probably about 40%. Normally you recommend brake pads at 30%. So let's go ahead and remove the axle, and that's pretty much it. So we have to remove the axle, we have to remove the clip. Let's go ahead and lift up the bike. All right, so we have the jack stand. What you want to do is just make sure there's nothing where you're lifting that. You want to make sure there's nothing breakable, or bolts, or a drain plug, or anything like that, because that's where you're going to be putting the entire weight of the bike. So we looked underneath. We're checking, making sure there isn't any components down there, like I mentioned, and then we're just going to go ahead and lift the bike. I typically like to push the stand, or the scissor stand, a little bit inside, because of course the bike's going to start to tilt over to the other side. So let's go ahead and start lifting it. And what we're looking for, we're just looking to get a little bit of weight off of this axle. We're not looking to completely lift the bike. We're just looking to get some weight off of this axle, because it's going to be a little difficult to take that off when you have the weight of the bike back there. So we're just looking for it to just kind of slightly touch. So we're lifting it, and then of course we are also going to break that torque on that axle. Let's keep it right there where it has a little bit of weight on the rear. That way, when we start cranking on the axle, we don't accidentally flip the bike over, because of course, you know, you're putting your weight on it. I believe this could have somewhere like 70 foot-pounds of torque. So if you're putting your weight on it and it's lifted off the ground, you could potentially drop the bike if you don't have like a ratcheting system or something, which we don't have. So let's go ahead and find the proper socket for this and break that torque. All right, so we found the proper size. So this side is, no, this side is a 36. So that's how massive that socket is. All right, so you need a 36 on this side. The other side appears to be a 1 inch 1/8. I'm pretty sure there's a metric size for it. I just don't have it. Or I probably have it, but I haven't been able to figure it out, because I had a 30 on the, and it's like in between, so I'm not sure what size this is. So let's go ahead and remove this clip. All right, so that's that. Let's go ahead and, of course, lefty loosey, righty tighty. This is the right size, right? There we go. So let's go ahead and grab the other socket, or the wrench. I mean the ratchet. So lefty loosey, righty tighty, counterclockwise. So you gotta lift it, right? No, you gotta push down. Yeah, you gotta push down. Counterclockwise. So there we go. It's getting loose. There we go. So that's kind of loose. We should be able to take this off without putting any weight on it once we lift the bike. So that's all you need. Make sure the frame is flat with the jack on both sides. Make sure it's fully seated and it's not hanging off the end and stuff like that. So that's why I typically shove the jack a little bit deeper into the bike. That way it's not floating. So we're just looking. I think my security system's going off. I don't have my keys. So we're just looking for the rear tire to lift. There we go. So it's floating. Let's go ahead and just lower it a little bit, so it's just barely touching. There we go. It is just barely touching right there. So you see we can't move the wheel anymore. So let's try to see if we could take this axle out. So let's go ahead and grab our tools. Counterclockwise, lefty loosey. Make sure you keep everything the way it's supposed to sit. So here, let's switch over to this side, because you have a couple spacers here. All right, so just to kind of show you guys how this goes, that's the spacer, there's the nut. Try to keep these things together the way you pull out this this wheel. And then of course we have an extra spacer, or the sensor, ABS sensor, and then there's another spacer inside. So just remember how this goes. All right, the caliper, the sensor, the caliper mount, and then the spacer over here. Try to make sure you keep these spacers on the left and the right. You don't want to swap these. you'll make a huge mess out of it. So look at this side again. How many spacers do we have on this one? Well, we have a giant spacer on the left side, this one right here. So just keep in mind. Let's go ahead and grab a mallet and see if we can push this out. Axle's out. Wear gloves if you have them. Just wear gloves. All right. The spacers haven't fallen out because the bike's pretty much still, I mean, the wheel's still inside, so we got to lift the bike a little bit taller so we get the wheel out. Alright, so we're back from Sporttech Motorcycles. Guys, if you have any business, you need mechanical work or tires, contact the guys at Sporttech Motorcycles. They got me in and out in 20 minutes. So once again, thank you so much for getting me back on the road, Sporttech Motorcycles. I'm going to leave their number contact them if you need tires. They'll hook you up with a discount. So these are the Metzler ME 888 Marathon Ultras. So this is supposed to be a high mile tire. So I'm hoping we could probably squeeze 11,000 miles out of this. If I could squeeze 11,000 miles out of this, I'm gonna be happy. All right, so tires are on, of course. You know, he told me to break in the tire, take it easy for the first couple 60 miles just to be on the safe side. The tires are slippery, and let me tell you, they're slippery. All right, so just take it easy on the bike. Don't go nuts. Like I mentioned, probably give it 60 miles, you know, before you go canyon riding. You don't want to, you know, ride aggressively on a brand new tire. So that being said, let's go ahead and check the torque spec on these, check the torque spec on the rotor, and then clean it up a little bit. Well, you know, since we have it out here, we could probably clean it up a little bit. So we're gonna do that. And then of course, you know, one more thing, do not rest the tire on the rotor or on its side. Just keep it up like this, right? Rest it up against something. You do not want to lay it flat on its side, okay? You know, just as a precaution, you don't want to damage it, stuff like that. So just keep it upright as much as possible. If you have to lay it on its side, get a pillow or a blanket or something if you absolutely have to. All right, try to keep it upright like this. Rest it up against the wall, do your torque specs, and then you know, mount the tire as soon as possible. So let's go look for the sockets, of course, and then get the torque wrench, and then I'll look at my owner's manual real quick. All right, so we have some numbers here, of course. You guys can see. I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up, but we have the rear sprocket screws. So you have two torque values, or two different torque specs. So your first torque, 60 foot-pounds. So that's if you're installing it. So when you're installing it, you have to set these to 60 foot-pounds, and then you back them out, I believe, once, and then you retorque them to 77 to 83 foot-pounds. So that's where I'm going to set mine. I'm going to set mine to I think 83. So let's go ahead and set them to 83 foot-pounds, because I mean they're already tight. I don't think I have to do the 60 foot-pounds first. So let's see what else it says. Align the rear sprocket. New sprocket screws tighten using the following sequence. Tighten screws to initial torque 60 pounds. Back off screws 1/2 turn. So you back them out 1/2 turn, not a full turn. You back them out 1/2 turn, and then you re-tighten them to 77 to 83 foot-pounds. All right, so that's that. So let's go ahead and set these. Like I said, we're going to set it to 83 foot-pounds, the max. Went ahead and I pulled out the digital torque meter just so I can see where these are at. We are at 40. It's a little tough holding the wheel down. Oh, I am loosening it. I was wondering what's going on. I was like, what's going on? All right, once again. All right. Let's go ahead and try it one more time. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. Clockwise. So that ranged out. I have that at 80 foot-pounds, but it clicked at 77. Let's try it again. That was 82. So I trust the digital torque more than the actual 81. So we went here, we're gonna go down here. All right, so that's it. Having the digital meter works, because I mean, this is from Amazon. All right, I thought I set it at 80. I don't know, it was clicking at 77. So I just gave it a little bit more. Looking at the digital torque, we were hitting 80, 81 on the on these bolts, or on these screws. Harley Davidson calls them screws, so I guess that's what I'm gonna call them. I don't think it's correct. So let's go ahead and switch over to the disc, the rotor. We're gonna go find these bolts, or this socket, and then we're going to torque these down as well. All right, so once again, for the disc, that is 30 to 45, I don't know if the camera's gonna pick it up, 30 to 45 foot-pounds. Once again, I guess star pattern. I mean, technically it's already bolted onto the wheel. So as far as the, you know, I guess it's just a good idea to build muscle memory. So let's go ahead and lower this. I still have the torque. How much did I say? I said, I think I'm gonna go with 40. Nice middle number, nice even. Let's go ahead and turn on the torque, the digital torque spec. Let's start up here and then work our way down so we can see what's the torque value on these. That's 40. Star pattern once again. This thing likes to go off early because it's clicking at 38 foot-pounds. Down over to the other one. Up here, like I said, star pattern. I think it's a T45, in case you guys are wondering about the and we need one more, come on. Alright, so that's it. We are at, for the most part, we're at 39. I did see a little bit of a 41. So that's what's so unique about these. You can get these at Harbor Freight, this digital torque reader. And like I said, it clicks right under the 40 foot-pounds. So this clicks in early. So let's go ahead and now reset this to 0. When you store it, you gotta set this back to 0. All right, so we're all set. We checked the torque values on the disc and the sprocket. Now we have to put the wheel back on, but let's clean it up. Like I said, we're gonna clean it up. I'm not gonna put that in the video, but just wipe it down, clean it. All right, so we're putting the wheel back in. You have to lift it up a little bit more. If you're able to just barely squeeze it out when you took it off, you gotta, of course, you got more tread on the tire now, so you gotta lift it up a little bit more. Remember, you gotta fit the belt around the sprocket. All right, so work the belt around the sprocket. Keep an eye on the right side of the bracket. Let's move on to this side. Let's make sure the bracket mode is sitting, the bracket mount is sitting flush. Let's go ahead and just lower the bike a little bit. Make sure your belt guard is in its location. All right, so we're just fitting the spacers in as they go. Try to put them in there. Remember how they're supposed to go in there. Let's see, prop up. So this one, the sensor goes in first. So spacer, then the caliper mount, and then your speed sensor. All right. So looks like we got everything aligned. Spacer, brake caliper mount, and the speed sensor. Looks like this side we're all aligned up. Same thing on the left side. We have the spacer lined up. It looks like we are ready for the axle. Keep in mind, just, you know, double check, triple check your work. Everything looks to be fine. Super tight, guys. I just sped it up, and I lowered. What I ended up doing is I ended up lowering the bike, and it's pretty much even now where it's supposed to sit. So I can feel it right through the wheel. Let's go ahead and put some anti-seize on the axle, a ton of it, and then we'll just, you know, just double check everything. Make sure you have plenty of clearance with the rotor and the brake caliper mount. Make sure there's a lot of clearance there. Just you know, just double, triple check your work. So I'm keeping it somewhat lifted up. Like I said, I'm gonna line it up a little bit more once I get the axle ready. I'm just putting it right over here. I'm pretty sure once I start inserting the axle, it'll spread all the way to the back of the axle. I mean, you can be super liberal with this. Like I said, once you start putting it in, it should start coating the rest of the axle. If you have gloves, you probably want to wear them if you don't want to get, you know, if you don't want to get this stuff on there, on your hands. Alright, so we're all the way through. Just lift it, just eyeball it. You'll be able to see if you need to lift or lower the bike. We're pretty much done. We just got to put the spacer back on, the bolts, the caliper back on, and we're pretty much done. Let's go ahead and grab our brake caliper. Make sure nothing fell out. So I'm pretty sure nothing fell out. Remove the brake caliper bolts. You only have two. Slide that back in there. Short bolt in the front. Looks like they probably need Loctite, so let's put some Loctite on these. So the short one goes in the front. Line it up, of course. And then the longer one goes on the front mount. There we go. So you always want to hand thread these just to make sure that they're going in properly. You don't put them in an awkward angle, and then you end up torquing them and you end up breaking the bolt. Alright, so after looking at the owner's manual, this is called the sleeve screw, and this is called the caliper slider bolt. So the slider bolt is 14 to 18 foot-pounds. The slider screw, which is this one, so this one's 14, 18 foot-pounds. This one is a 11 to 14 foot-pounds. So that, yeah, that's it at 17. This one, sorry if the camera's moving, I don't have a lot of room. That's it at 14. And then we're done on this side. Then we gotta put the belt guard back on. We went ahead and we applied a bit of Loctite on these belt guard bolts. Just make sure they're good and tight. I'm sure there's a torque spec somewhere out there, but I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna waste any more time looking for it. If you guys know, just leave it in the comments. Maybe you can help somebody out. I'm just gonna make sure they're good and tight. Good and tight. Yeah. That is good and tight. Loctite, of course. Now we have to do the axle. I think that's the last part of this whole thing. We're almost at the finish line. I just can't find the axle torque spec. Alright, so for the life of me, I could not find the torque spec in the owner's manual. For some reason they don't have it where you're mounting the wheel. It doesn't make any sense. So I had to go online, I had to watch a couple videos, because I mean there's different numbers. So somebody else was able to find the torque spec on their owner's manual. So I guess it depends between a breakout and non-breakout bikes. So it'd be 105 max torque spec on my Lowrider S, and if you have a breakout, it's actually more than 105 on the torque spec. So just to kind of give the person a shout out, because like I said, I was looking for this. Street Sean 21, he has the actual torque spec. Of course the camera's not going to pick it up, but you can see it right here. Rear axle on his video. I have the owner's manual, I just can't find it for the life of me. It's there's everything here except for the axle. We're going to set it to 105. Here it is right here.
105. The
105.
breakout is 110 to 120. So we're between 95 and 105.
So 95 to 105 foot-pounds of torque. That took me way too long to find it. I spent more time looking for the damn torque spec than actually installing the wheel. So we are at 105. Make sure it's righty-tighty. So that's 100, but I was looking at it, it was actually slightly lower. So let's just add 5 more foot-pounds. Alright, so we're at 97 based on the digital. We're all good now. 100 foot-pounds on the rear axle. Smooth as butter. You guys can check the alignment. You guys are also supposed to check the alignment on the actual belt as well. You got to make sure it's seated properly. So everything's pretty much done. We are now complete. This has to go, of course, back on the axle. Can I do it by hand? I think I can. There we go. So we got that in there, and that's it. We're done. Now we got to lower the bike, put away the tools. Somebody was telling me that I was doing this unsafe. I don't know. I thought I was doing it just fine. So let's just lower the bike. I spent way too much time looking for that axle torque spec. I don't understand why it's just not on the on that rear wheel section of the owner's manual. It doesn't say anything. So we are complete. We are now finished. Once again, do not go crazy on the new tire. It needs to break in. Pull out your jack lift or whatever you want to call it. Make sure this this kickstand is down proper and it's locked in. This thing has fallen. Not my bike, but I've seen plenty of posts on the Facebook group where this actually fails. If it's not locked in properly, your bike will tip over. So that's it, we're done. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching yet another video. Please leave a like in the video. Please contact Sporttech. You know, they've been around for a while. I've been taking my business there to them for I'd say the last 7 years. I've been going to Sporttech for the last 7 years. They've worked on some of my bikes. So contact Sporttech here in San Jose if you're in San Jose, or if you're in the Bay Area. Take your bike to Sporttech, have them take a look at your bike, or if you need tires, contact them. Let's go ahead and take this out for a spin. All right, life's a risk. Get out there and ride. Later.